Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's RIDI session. Our webinar this morning will be looking at online accessibility and whether it's nice or necessity in talent engagement. We are recording the webinar and we'll be taking questions all the way through it. Hopefully you should be able to see the question panel on the right hand side of your screen. If there's any questions you'd like to ask, just pop them in there for us. So leading today's webinar for us then is Keith Mooter of ReciteMe. Keith is an online accessibility expert who is going to share just how much of an important step this is in your inclusion journey. We're just waiting now for one or two more people to join and then we'll begin the webinar properly. So just bear with us for a couple of minutes while we wait a bit longer. Okay, so thank you for waiting, everybody. And now I will hand over to Keith, who will start the webinar.
Hi, everyone. Hope everyone is well in these very strange circumstances we find ourselves in. As Nicola mentioned, what I want to do today is just give you some insight and something to take away around online accessibility. The reason I've titled it Nice or Necessity is I obviously speak to a lot of clients day to day, and some of the responses are around it being a nice to have rather than it being a necessity. And I just want to give you some information that supports the latter part of that discussion in terms of it being a necessity and why it is important that we make our online content and online platforms a little bit more accessible to attract and engage with a more diverse audience. Hopefully this will give you something to take back to your organizations and your colleagues and hopefully spark some new and interesting conversations. So I'll start taking you through some of the slides. As Nicola mentioned, if you've got any questions, please pause them and we can obviously answer them and go through them for you. So just to start, I really want to make this very top level because there's a lot of technical jargon around the subject of obviously website build, compliance, accessibility. So what I want to do is try and make it as straightforward and as easy to understand as possible. The way we think about accessibility is basically a coin, which is as simple as we can get it. Two sides to that coin. One side is very much the website compliance. And what I mean by compliance is the actual build of the website, how your digital agency or your digital team or web designers create that website and actually make it compliant to allow people with assistive technology to use that content and access that content. So that's not something we contribute to. That's very much the responsibility of the client, clients we work with or companies who build their website to put that emphasis on making sure that the website is built in a certain way. The other side of the coin is the reasonable adjustment, which is where we come into play, which is actually providing people with the direct access to tools and resources to allow them to adjust the view of that content so they can read it, engage with it, understand it a little bit easier, just making their online experiences a whole lot easier day to day, especially when it comes to the world of HR, talent attraction, talent engagement, and certainly talent retention as well. The bottom point of this slide, supporting a diverse audience and an inclusive culture, if we add both of them together and we use the coin as one, it actually creates that perfect storm of a great website which is built in the perfect way, but also that reasonable adjustment to allow people to change and alter the look and feel of the website, which will open up that content to a much more diverse audience of people accessing that content. So why is it so important? There's a few points around this, and this is probably just a handful of the points I could make around why online accessibility is so important. Some of these are, very general and not necessarily attuned to just talent attraction and areas around HR. I'm sure it's not a surprise to anybody. We live in a digital age in general. Using our phones, our laptops, even our TVs, cars, it's all digital, or a lot of it is digital now. So we're living in a world where it can throw up new challenges, new issues, new problems to certain people. We need to make sure that those issues and challenges are approached and dealt with in a relative way. So we need to really understand that with the littlest of things that we do in life, even ordering shopping or applying for a job or researching some information that we need to find out, it's all done within the digital age, and we need to accommodate for that. Increasing number of internet users, which equals an increasing user diversity. So the more people using the internet naturally creates a much higher percentage of people who may have diverse issues or may have problems around inclusion or accessibility needs. Engagement, it's about different ways of engaging. It's about allowing people to engage with you as a company in certain ways online, opening up that engagement to people and welcoming people. Websites are typically the first step of any contact nowadays with a company, whether you're applying for a job or whether you're, again, even just ordering your shopping. You've got to visit the company's website first and understand where to go in that website and what to do. So we need to make engagement a lot more accessible. Multiple channels. From a HR point of view, and I'll cover this a little bit later, there are many channels that people can be using, like an intranet, careers website, your main corporate website, ATS, whatever it might be. But again, aside from that, there's micro sites, there's your, kind of other digital portals that you might use, like a learning management system, and such an array of digital channels now that we need to make sure that they're all accessible to a certain level so everybody can enjoy them and everybody gets the best out of them. And again, creating and supporting a diverse talent pool of applicants and employees. That can cross over to just supporting a diverse audience, but from a HR and from a talent attraction point of view, we are looking to create and support a diverse talent pool of applicants and employees, and making online platforms and websites more accessible will naturally attract and support that diversity within your talent pools. So there are, and this is probably as technical as I'm going to get, there are 4 principles to remember. And the main term that people use when it comes to compliance, because I think it'd be rude not to touch on this when it comes to building, because it's good to have a background idea around what goes on the other side of the coin. So Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG as it's known in a more technical world. So there's 4 key principles to remember, one of which is perceivable. And what you're actually being asked to do when we talk about being perceivable is to remove any barriers to accessing your website or app by providing alternative methods of access to compensate for missing or weaker senses. So the ability to resize text for someone who may have low vision, or video captions for someone who is deaf might be useful, and that could be classified within the terms of perceivable. Then we've got operable. And what you're being asked to do here is to ensure that your website or app, along with anything that is interactive on it, can be controlled through a variety of tools. For example, through a keyboard use only. So people struggle with a mouse or tracker pad because of motor-based disabilities. They might be able to use the keyboard only. So allowing your website to be able to navigate it through a keyboard. It also means that your website or app should be error tolerant. So allowing enough time to complete and correct tasks and do so easily. So giving people that extra bit of time to work with the website and make sure that they're doing what they should be doing. The third point is understandable. So it's to use language and functionality that is easy to comprehend. Nothing should be a surprise for the user here, because the action and result have a direct correlation, and there is a level of consistency that aids understanding. So really making the website understandable to people, which seems obvious, but obviously we need to cover that point. And also making it robust as well. So this means that your website should work well across different platforms, technologies and devices within reasonable limits. So that's, as I said, that's as technical as I really want to get, but it gives you an understanding of where the core principles lie, and what contributes, what contributions go into the web content accessibility guidelines. So kind of top tips to support WCAG compliance. So these are just a handful of things that can be done on a website to help and aid with the compliance. So there's a few of these I've already mentioned in the points. So provide text alternatives for non-text content, make all functionality available from a keyboard, help users navigate and find content. So offering as much support as possible. Give users enough time to read and use content. So again, that time frame element, giving people that freedom to be able to go through their own experience and process rather than forcing the issue. Make content appear and operate in predictable ways, so nothing too surprising to the user. And create content that can be presented in different ways, including by assistive technologies without losing meaning. And there's so many more I could have included in this list, so many more, but these are just a handful of things that people can do with their website to make it a little bit more compliant. So the impact of online accessibility on talent attraction alone. 6 key points I think I'd like to raise, and again, there's probably a huge list that I could go through. So rebalancing the issue that the majority of application processes are now online. Now, online applications and processes now kind of fall into the category of necessity. Certainly from my own personal experience, over the last 10 years, online applications have been the norm. Very few times, and I probably have to think way back to when I posted a CV out to a company that I was interested in working with. So it's about rebalancing the issue that the majority of application processes are now online. So we need to take real thought and consideration around accessibility, because we're actually making people go through these processes, and the majority of them are online. So we need to make them more accessible. Increase confidence for applicants who may otherwise struggle with digital content. So applying for a job is a big thing for anyone. Moving career, moving company, moving from an environment that they're already comfortable with and moving into a new environment. Let's make that process as comfortable and as confident building as we can. So actually providing online accessibility support on the careers website or a HR based website, ATS, learning management system, intranet, we make that more accessible to people. It will increase their confidence if they're typically used to having frustrating experiences when it comes to online. It's about giving them that initial confidence when they click on apply and they find that your careers website or your process is fully supportive of their disability or impairment. It gives them that extra edge and that extra kind of push to apply for that job and make sure that they feel that confidence right throughout the process as well. And as a result of that, you're limiting candidate fallout due to natural barriers or accessibility needs. Nothing I'm talking about today is mission impossible. It's all very easy to fix or put something in place. So let's not lose out on really promising people and candidates and talent due to natural barriers and accessibility needs. It can be supported. Like many physical disabilities, there are things in place that can actually improve the way people access your information and avoid people from dropping out of certain processes or situations. Presenting a truly inclusive and accessible employer brand. I mean, I speak to so many companies, large and small, and I can't think of any company that I've spoken to in the last year that isn't really invested in making their employer brand as inclusive as possible and really approaching the world of diversity. So simply by providing additional support via the website will certainly present a very strong case that as an employer, you actually have the best intentions with regards to accessibility and inclusion, which can obviously set that very first important precedent to a potential candidate or talent. Creating diverse talent pools across all areas of the business. So obviously really important that every area of the business has a very diverse talent pool, and that obviously those talent pools can be built over time without any barriers, and allowing hiring managers to have that freedom of talking to and engaging with a real diverse range of talent as well. The online accessibility feature on a careers website will unlock that front door to the business and to the opportunities that you're offering, by making sure that that diverse range of talent aren't getting frustrated by the initial process and walking away and going to a competitor or going to another business that may have a little bit more invested in that side of things. And then setting the tone for potential employees, researching your company as a potential employer. Again, very same tone. It's about setting that precedent, you know, giving the impression that you have a huge amount invested in diversity and inclusion. It just really sets a very strong tone for anybody who's visiting the website, whether it be a client or whether it be a potential member of staff. So what can be achieved? So what I wanted to do is just offer a bit of a case study, just a bit of an example of a recruitment partner or a recruitment client that went live in January 2019, the Mawson Group or Mawson International. Since then, they've had over 7,000 people supported to research and apply for a job, which is phenomenal over a year and a bit. Nearly 38,000 accessibility features used to support a customer experience, and over 25,000 pieces of content read out loud using the ReciteMe toolbar on their website. And then finally, around 9,000 pieces of content translated into over 100 languages. So that gives you a bit of an idea about what the toolbar offers, but more so, it gives you a real insight into just how many people rely on this type of technology on a day-to-day basis, going through a very important process that can directly impact their lives and their families. Oh, and that was just a quick look on the Mawson Group website. So the toolbar is active, and somebody's actually launched the toolbar into a text font called Open Dyslexic, which looks to support people with dyslexia and hopefully improve their reading experience. But that shows a number of their jobs presented in that font. So if they were struggling with the original font in the website, this will obviously improve the way they engage with that opportunity and read that text to enable them to make a decision as to whether it's a job they'd like to apply for. So where could online accessibility impact your employer brand? Again, I've touched on this, so apologies for replication. But your company website, your careers website, your applicant tracking process, onboarding platforms, intranet, learning management systems, these are all websites we've already implemented Recite into, and we've seen a huge level of positive feedback from the client, where they've seen people engage with the company a whole lot better because they potentially had learning difficulty or a visual impairment, and they had the tools available to them to be able to change the look and feel of that website so they could actually engage with the content a lot better. And whether it was a job application or whether it was simply just visiting the website to do some research, it's always important. That person is visiting that website for a particular reason. Whatever that reason is, it's important to them. And this type of technology, whether it's Recite or whether it's not, will always have a positive impact on someone who clicks on that launch button to bring up the accessibility tools. So how does it look? So another kind of sneak preview at what the toolbar might do for the user or what they've got available to them. So this is actually the, if I'm not mistaken, the Dunelm Mill, the retail chain. It's their careers website with Recite launched on it. So you get a screen reader, which allows people with learning or visual disabilities to be able to listen to content on the website, which is hugely positive, taking away any frustrations or barriers around reading digital content. You've got styling options, which offers a range of different features. So that can be the text, you know, how you saw the Open Dyslexic on the Mawson Group website. This can be changing the background color, the text color. You can actually, as you can see there, you can actually select your own as well. You've got 15 predetermined options, but you've got a select your own option where you can really go to town and be very specific about what colors you want to choose. You can enlarge the text size, you can minimize it, really be very personal about what you prefer in terms of your view of digital content, which is the main thing about this. It's about giving people that personal choice, that personal control and confidence around their online experiences. We've got things like reading aids as well. So we've got a reading ruler, reading mask, but we've got a magnifying glass as well, which I'm sure I didn't need to point that out, but obviously we've designed it in a way to make it very obvious and very intuitive. So you can use the magnifying glass to move around the website and zoom in on any area of the images or the text that you want to read as well, which is great. So there is a real, you know, and that's just a touch on some of the features that we provide, which will hopefully improve online accessibility. And what's becoming a huge part of our conversations is translation. Because we have such a diverse and cultured, you know, country and communities and towns and cities, that actually there's more and more people who have English as a second language. Not necessarily that they don't speak English at all, but maybe prefer to read large volumes of content on a website in their own language. So the toolbar will offer just over 100 languages text to text, but then around 35 languages it provides a voice to those languages as well, in that native speaking voice, to allow people to listen to the content in that language as well, which is fantastic because that covers both impairments, any visual or learning difficulties that they have, but also the language element as well. And these are just some of the companies that are embracing online accessibility from a recruitment point of view. So the Clear Company, National Grid Careers, you know, Mawson Group, Ganymede, Dunelm, Tesco Bank. We also work with RIDI to make sure that their website is as accessible as possible. And that's pretty much it really from my point of view in terms of the content. And actually, as Nicola said, if you've got any questions that you'd like to pose, please feel free, or take a copy of my details and obviously get in touch with me, and obviously in the coming days.
Okay, so that's brilliant, Keith. Thank you very, very much. We do actually have a couple of questions just to ask you. So the first question then is, obviously there is a difference between sort of basic compliance on a website and full accessibility, as you've talked through. Do you see a huge difference when people go further than the sort of the basic first steps of compliance?
Yeah, so you could have, from a user's perspective, you could have the most compliant website possible. If there's no direct tools to be able to alter the look and feel of the website, they wouldn't actually know how compliant that website was. It's all done very much in the background, and it's not something that's visible. Where what Recite is and what typical online accessibility is, it's a visible tool that people can engage with, use, and then start seeing direct changes to the content. So yes, there is a real jump between the compliance element of it, which is kind of laying the foundations for assistive technology, and then actually having the functionality there to be able to make the most of that compliance and make the changes that the user wants to make the content a little bit more accessible. I hope that clears that question.
Yeah, yes, thank you. One other final question then is, sort of from in your experience as well, what are the most common issues that people sort of would need to be thinking about in terms of their recruitment accessibility, so that side of their website? Is there any things that you tend to find crop up again and again?
I don't think there's no real major issues. I think obviously a lot of the time with recruitment companies, when we talk to them, I think obviously they find that a lot of their clients now have diversity and inclusion at the heart of what they do, and in terms of attracting talent. So certainly from a recruitment agency perspective and recruitment brand, they're having to meet a lot of needs for their clients now, and not just delivering the right candidates, but delivering the right resources and the right foundations to attract that talent. So I think that's a very common conversation I have with, certainly with recruitment brands and recruitment agencies. They go in for tenders, or they go in for you know, the opportunity to work with a company, and the question is often asked, how do you tackle online accessibility? How do you tackle diversity? You know, what do you have in place that might assist us in attracting the right talent, or at least seeing the right talent in front of us with that level of diversity? So certainly with Recite or something similar, that's a strong response to go back with. I think naturally there's a real range of different applicant tracking systems out there as well. And not many of them have any accessibility at heart. It's all about process a lot of the time. You know, we work with a couple of partners who develop applicant tracking systems, where they've really found it a key element of their client partnership, that, you know, diversity inclusion is still a big part of that process. You don't want people to visit a careers website and then click on apply and then suddenly get all that accessibility taken away. So I think the ATS needs to be considered as well, not just the actual front-facing website, because that's the intricate part of the process. That's where there's a lot of questions to be asked, buttons to be pressed, understanding to be made. So I think the ATS element is probably the biggest issue for a lot of our clients, is making sure that element of it is just as important. But then anything beyond that as well, so you're offering that continual level of accessibility from a recruitment point of view, to make sure that when they do become employees, they're still supported at the other end of the process as well.
Okay. So another question for you, Keith. How can people who have learning difficulties use Recite if they're coming across it for the first time? And then a second element of the question is, how can it be promoted as a new tool for accessibility on internal and external web pages?
So in terms of supporting people who've never come across it before, this is something we very much work with our clients on. So we do have all the information that you could possibly want around the toolbar and how it works. So a lot of our clients, when they launch Recite, they convert their typical accessibility page into a user guide to an extent, which allows them to acknowledge what buttons, what features there are, how it might help, obviously offer any frequently asked questions around the toolbar. The launch of the actual positioning of the button is really important as well. I think I'd like to touch on, because making that as apparent and as clear as possible is just as important, because otherwise people might miss it altogether. We actually move people away from using the word ReciteMe, because unless they're already aware of Recite, they wouldn't actually know what it was. So we do recommend that clients use the terminology like accessibility tools, launch accessibility, audiovisual help, just so people are aware, because they're conscious of those words. They know those words, they're familiar to them. So it actually makes it much easier for them to find it, click on it and launch the toolbar. We've built it in a way that it's very intuitive, so it shouldn't take long for anybody to, and obviously a lot of the tools are represented by picture icons to hopefully make things a little bit easier, but it's built in a way to make it as intuitive as possible. I think what I would make the point is that we are accommodating for people with, certainly from a visual point of view, from low to mid-level visual impairments. People who are completely blind or severely blind will have their own technology anyway, and will use their own, like JAWS or something similar, and will not have the need for Recite. We're accommodating a much larger audience that may have a low to mid-level, may just find digital content challenging for some reason. Maybe the text is too small, the colours don't quite work for them. You know, I think to kind of offer some insight into who we have supported and who we've had some really great feedback from, as certainly charities and clients have highlighted autism as a key area of who we support, dyslexia, dyspraxia, ADHD, people with colour blindness. again, kind of visual impairments, whether it's macular degeneration, to simple, you know, short-sighted, long-sighted, you don't have your glasses, you need to make some adjustment to the digital content. There's such a diverse range of people that will get to use the toolbar and see a positive impact from it. Nicola, can you just remind me of the second question as well? Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Also, how can this be promoted as a new tool for accessibility on internal and external web pages?
Yeah, so again, it's something we really get passionate about. You know, if a client agrees to offer something like this, we want to be at the forefront with them to make sure that the information is there for people to access. We do a lot of social media work with our clients to really push out the news of Recite onto LinkedIn, Twitter, you know, Instagram, various other social media channels. But we also do blogs, media kind of case studies, and we do as much as we can to support clients. But you're free to do as much kind of shouting about this as possible as well, and we'll support you with any information that you need with regards to that. We've done it with hundreds of clients, you know, large and small, from small charities up to large corporates. It's something we really, like I said, we do get very passionate about. We like to support clients as much as we can to make sure people know it's there, but also know what it's about and how it can really help them as well moving forward.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. I think that's it now for the questions. So thank you everyone for listening. I hope it was helpful. Yes.
Can I mention our pledge as well that we're doing at the moment, which is our kind of very COVID-19 orientated, which might.
Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah.
So at the moment, we're running a free pledge where if any company or organization has a COVID-19 specific page or update information on a page that they'd like to make more accessible, we're actually doing a free offer where what we do is we actually clone that page for you, and we provide you with a link, and that page that we clone comes equipped with ReciteMe. So if the user wants a more accessible version of your content around COVID-19, they simply click on the link and it will divert to that page, providing them with ReciteMe, where they can engage with the toolbar, use it, and also get the information hopefully a little bit easier. We've been running it for just over a month and a half, kind of just around the point where we went into complete lockdown, I think it was, and we've got around 80 separate pages now that are live with the pledge. So if that is of interest, obviously either let Nicola know or let myself know, and we'll happily have a conversation around that as well.
Okay. That's great. Thank you very much, and thank you again, everybody. We will be sending out a link to the recording of the webinar, as well as a copy of the presentation, and as we've just said as well, Keith's details. So if there's anything else that you think of that you'd like to ask or would like to know more about, then obviously please do get in touch. So once again, thank you very much, and goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.